Thomas Mitschoor, NOS.
Hallo, nieuw gezicht.
Ja, nieuw gezicht. De Brexit is geweest. De eerste keer dat u als Eurogroep bij elkaar bent sinds de Brexit. Gaat dat grote gevolgen hebben voor de Eurogroep?
Nou, er zullen ongetwijfeld gevolgen zijn voor de Europese economie. De vraag is natuurlijk, waar doen ze zich voor, in welke landen, in welke sectoren. Maar de meeste gevolgen zullen zich voordoen in de UK, in Groot-Brittannië. Dat zien we nu al. We zullen er vandaag over spreken, ook luisteren naar de commissie, de ECB. Hoe zij de situatie op de financiële markten zien. En dan kijken we verder.
En wat is uw belangrijkste boodschap aan de andere eurolanden ten opzichte van die Brexit?
Nou, ik denk dat het belangrijkste is dat we de belangen van de Europese Unie voortaan 27 landen goed veiligstellen. En op een zakelijke manier op een goede wijze afscheid nemen van het Verenigd Koninkrijk. Dat moet wel allemaal geregeld worden. En we hebben er denk ik een gezamenlijk belang bij om het goed te regelen.
Ja, dan is Portugal en Spanje, dus er staat een Portugese collega naast mij. Belangrijke beslissing vorige week genomen door de Europese Commissie. Was u het eens met die beslissing?
Ja, dat denk ik wel. Als je naar de cijfers kijkt is dat een begrijpelijke beslissing. Maar we gaan horen hoe de collega's erover denken. Het is uiteindelijk een beslissing van de ECOFIN. Dat zijn de 28 ministers van Financiën die moeten eigenlijk goedkeuring geven aan dit voorstel van de Europese Commissie. Maar Spanje en Portugal hebben nog werk te verrichten op de begroting. Dat is een feit.
Ja, en gaat er dan ook wat u betreft een boete volgen straks?
Dat is vervolgens weer een tweede besluit wat de commissie moet nemen. Dat zullen ze waarschijnlijk later deze maand nemen. Dat wacht ik gewoon eerst af.
Maar er wordt gezegd dat die boete ook €0 zou kunnen zijn. Is dat voor u voorstelbaar, dat het €0 wordt?
Dat is inderdaad mogelijk. Het ligt er ook aan hoeveel achterstand er is en wat de landen aan voorstellen zullen gaan doen om de problemen weg te werken. Daar mag de commissie ook rekening mee houden, dus we moeten het echt even afwachten.
Laatste thema, de Italiaanse banken. Wat kan de Eurogroep daar iets aan doen, aan die situatie van die Italiaanse banken?
Eigenlijk niet. De Eurogroep, de ECOFIN, wij hebben natuurlijk de wetgeving gemaakt in Europa die zegt hoe je banken en bankproblemen moet aanpakken. En de Europese banktoezichthouder en de Europese Commissie moeten met die wetgeving in de hand nu met de Italianen gaan praten om te zorgen dat het wordt aangepakt. Dat is wel het belangrijkste. Deze problemen zijn al heel oud, slepen zich voort. En de Italiaanse regering wil ze nu aanpakken en dat is op zichzelf positief.
Ja, en die Italiaanse regering wil ze aanpakken, maar misschien door staatssteun te geven. Gaat u daarvoor liggen?
Nou, daarvoor is de wet en regelgeving gewoon duidelijk. Die mogelijkheden zijn zeer beperkt. En in principe moeten gewoon de beleggers, de eigenaren van de banken, ook de verliezen dragen. En zij hebben immers ook de winsten gepakt in de goede jaren. Dan moeten ze de verliezen dragen als die er zijn. Maar nogmaals, het is aan de Europese Commissie, aan de centrale bank als banktoezichthouder om gewoon met de wetgeving in de hand de problemen nu te gaan aanpakken.
Dank u wel.
Mr. President, regarding Portugal and Spain, is the decision going to be taken before the summer break, and is it still possible to avoid sanctions to both countries?
Tomorrow in ECOFIN we will decide on the Commission's proposals. So this is basically about the question whether Spain and Portugal have ineffective action on their budgets. The question then of sanctions comes later. The Commission has to take a second decision, which is about the sanctions. So I can't look ahead on that. I'll have to wait what the Commission says.
What are your expectations from the Portuguese and Spanish governments regarding arguments to avoid these sanctions?
As you know, the governments have today, but also in the coming weeks, the chance to put their arguments forward before the Commission takes a final decision on the sanctions. So that's not for today. But I think for both countries it's true that there are budgetary issues and they still need to be resolved. So the question really is what more can these countries do and how much time is needed to sort out the budgetary problems.
So they are going to set an example for the rest of the Eurogroup?
I don't understand the question, so it's hard for me to answer.
It's unfair to sanction countries like Portugal and Spain that did a lot in these last years.
Yes, but those countries were also given a lot more extra time, as you know, to put their budgets right. And at the moment they are off track. They have not done what was agreed with the Commission. So that needs to be solved. There needs to be a solution for that. So it's not just about where we are now, it's also about what extra measures can be taken, what can be done for the next year, 2 years, And the more those countries can do in the coming period, the easier it will be for the Commission, I think.
Do you think the zero
Are
will...
the bank resolution recovery rules in Europe clear enough for the Italians to sort out their problem on their own, or does it need to be addressed by the Euro?
No, I think the rules are not that old yet, and they are clear. They are, of course, also strict in the sense that they make very clear when there needs to be a bail-in and who needs to be bailed in what order. And within that framework, solutions still can be found. I mean, we still have to deal with banks sometimes, and it's still possible, but it has to be done within those rules.
Are you worried about the state of the health of Italian banks and the state of discussions between the Commission and the Italian government on this question?
No, not particularly. I think that they're talking constructively to try and find solutions within the European frameworks. And yes, there are issues of non-performing loans in Italian banks, but that's not a new issue. It needs to be dealt with. It will have to be dealt with gradually. There will be no big solutions. I don't think that's possible for this kind of issue. And it's not an acute crisis. So that also gives us some time to sort these things out. So as long as the authorities in Italy and the banking authorities are constructively talking, I think we should allow them the time to do that.
May will be the only candidate to become the Prime Minister of the UK. What is your take on that?
I take note of it with great interest. I don't have any particular favorite, and so it doesn't really matter what I feel about that.
Okay.
She's the new Prime Minister, so I understand.
Vindt u dat Spanje en of Portugal nog een tweede jaar moeten krijgen om hun budget in orde te krijgen? Ik hoorde u net zeggen, next year and the year thereafter.
Het oplossen van begrotingstekorten kost jaren, zoals u weet. Dat is in alle landen zo. En of ze meer tijd nodig hebben. Kijk, op het moment dat je de doelstelling op dit moment niet gehaald hebt, dan zul je meer tijd moeten krijgen. Maar de vraag is, wat moet je bereiken in die jaren? Wat is de nieuwe effective action, zoals het dan heet? En hoeveel tijd krijg je daarvoor? Dat is nu echt aan de commissie. Dus de commissie heeft nu 1 besluit genomen. Vastgesteld dat het tot nu toe ineffective action is. Het tweede besluit is over de sancties. Moet dat verbonden worden aan sancties? Het derde besluit is, en hoe moet het nu verder? En dan is er ook nog een vierde besluit gaat over de structuurfondsen. Nou, als u deze procedures allemaal hebt doorgrond, dan zijn we maanden verder.
Vindt u het gepast dat de heer Barroso een functie heeft aanvaard bij Goldman Sachs?
Laat ik maar volstaan met te zeggen dat het, geloof ik, volgens de regels van de Europese Commissie is.
Meneer Dijsselbloem?
Hello.
From Portugal again. Actually, what must Portugal and Spain do in order to avoid sanction, in order to have a zero sanction? Are the Eurozone countries going to ask for measures now to be applied?
Well, the only thing we're discussing today is the first decision that the Commission now has taken, that Spain and Portugal have delivered ineffective action. They've not done what was agreed a couple of years ago. The second and the third decision, which is about will there be sanctions and what needs to be the effective action in the coming years, those are not on the table today. So the only thing the Commission now asks us is to agree that so far there has been ineffective action. And we'll listen to the ministers today, see how they feel.
Are you going
and
to
then
accept that? Or do you expect a majority to block the recommendation to be adopted?
It's difficult to say. I would have to listen to the ministers in the Eurogroup first. The formal decision is tomorrow in ECOFIN, as you know, but it's very important that the Eurogroup ministers take a clear stance on this.
But a zero sanction is a scenario that would please you?
It's up to the Commission. I believe it's a possibility to have zero sanctions. But the third element is also very important. What will the countries do in this year and the coming years to sort out the problems? And I think the more they can put on the table, the more commitment they can give to the Commission, perhaps that could help.
So you think further measures are needed? Further measures are needed.
Well, if you look at the budgetary situation in the countries involved, it's inevitable that more steps are needed.
Are you talking about this year or only 2017 in the end?
It's up to the Commission. So you're asking me details that I cannot give today. The only thing we will discuss today is the decision by the Commission that so far there has been ineffective action. Let's see how the ministers feel about that, and if they agree, then the Commission will move forward and look at the two other questions do there have to be sanctions, and what will be the size of these sanctions? And secondly, what will the Commission ask for the future? Because the problems have to be looked at and have to be dealt with.
And according to you, do you think that the new measures, the new adjustment, the new commitment should be adopted during the allocation procedure during the next 10 days?
There are certain deadlines for these procedures. So, for example, the sanctions have to be decided within 20 days, and within 2 months the Commission needs to decide on what happens next, the effective action for the coming period. But these are all maximum procedures, so the Commission could all take the decisions at once. They could do it slowly, they could do it fast. So, but I'm sure you've all checked the procedures and the deadlines. But I think it's in everyone's interest to do it as fast as possible.
Okay.
Gaat u morgen spreken met mevrouw Vestager?
Weet u wat ik was met mevrouw
Staat
Vestager?
gewoon overal.
Ik ga gewoon even bijpraten met haar. Ik ken haar goed, zij is oud-collega. Ze is minister van Financiën geweest, zoals u weet.
Ja, maar ik kom vast niet zomaar op de thee.
De situatie in Europa, is dat vaag genoeg voor u?
Ja, zeehavens, belastingen.
Europa omvat alles.
A clarification on the Italian situation, but do you think that a market solution is possible which doesn't include the state aid to solve the problems with the Italian banks?
The honest answer is I don't know, because I don't have the insight that the bank supervisor has, that the European Commission has. They know the exact details per bank, and they will have to talk with the banks and the authorities in Italy on what possible solutions there are within the frameworks. So that's all I can say. I'm not a bank supervisor. I cannot design a solution. The only thing that to me is very important is that we respect what we agreed between us, because otherwise everything will be questioned in Europe, and there are a lot of questions in Europe already, so we don't need any more questions.
Do you think that a safety net of 150 billion is needed, as Deutsche Bank has suggested?
What do you think my answer will be?
I want to hear what your answer is. But I'm not here to answer
No, look,
hypothetical questions.
There have always been and will always be bankers that say we need more public money to recapitalize our banks. And I will resist that very strongly because it is again and again hitting on the taxpayer, again and again increasing sovereign debt in countries that are already heavily indebted. So the problems in the banks need to be sorted out in the banks and by the banks. And the easiness in which some of these bankers are saying we need public money to sort out our problems, I think that's really problematic. We need leaders in the banks that address the problems themselves instead of saying, here you are, politicians, have our problems. There has to come an end to this. Is that strong enough for you?
BBC, can I just ask, in the UK, the contest to be the next Prime Minister of the UK is down to one candidate, Theresa May, and it seems she could be in place very soon as Prime Minister. What's your response to that?
Well, you know a lot more than I do. The only thing I heard today that she is the only sort of remaining candidate. Would she still have to go to the Conservative Congress, the party Congress? You can tell me. We look forward to working with whomever is coming out of this democratic process, and we'll have to find solutions for the Brexit, which has been causing a lot of problems particularly for the UK, but also for Europe.
So fair to say you're encouraged by the fact that political events seem to be moving quickly in the UK?
Well, you know, the sooner we can sort out this, let me say it diplomatically, this problematic situation, the better.
When you say it's been causing problems for Europe, can you put your finger on what those are?
Have you been reading the newspapers lately?
How worried are you about the economic
Spain, is it very wise to impose sanctions, but like that they are going to be zero?
The only thing we're discussing today is the decision by the Commission to establish that there has been ineffective action. In other words, Spain and Portugal have not done enough to stay on the fiscal path. That's the only topic today. Step 2 is, does that require sanctions? And step 3 is, what is the next task? What's ahead? What do we expect from these countries in the coming period? But today it's only about the first step.
On Portugal and Spain, what would you say to the argument?
I've answered Spain and Portugal 5 times now.
Italian banking crisis.